In order to achieve a high dungeon score, you will need to master 3 crucial parts of Hypixel Skyblock dungeons. These being the clear, where you clear out the mobs from a normal room, secrets, where you have to find many hidden items throughout the dungeons, and then the boss fight. However, in this video I will be only covering the clear portion of the dungeons, and there will be future videos coming up about the other two, so if you want to see that, please subscribe and like the video. Now, in this video I will be covering 2 different kind of boots in Hypixel Skyblock. The Necron boots and the Maxor boots, which are the 2 main boots that mid-game players use in order to achieve a high dungeon score. This is why I have taken my time to make a video about comparing these 2 boots and see how much of a difference the stats make and how much of a difference it will give you actually in the dungeons. I'll be testing these boots outside of dungeons and inside of dungeons just so there is a sort of fair comparison. And without further ado, let's go into the stats that I have on my profile. Alright guys, so now that we have entered Hypixel Skyblock, let's check out our stats in this profile. So first I have Combat 24, Farming 19, Fishing 13, Mining 20, Forging 16, Enchanting 27, Alchemy 7, Carpentry 16, Runecrafting 3, Taming 20, and Hunting 11. Now, these stats are quite low for a mid-game player, however, this profile is only around 1 month old, so I wouldn't say that it's, too bad for this comparison. And for the dungeon comparison, I am Kata 25, I have completed floor 7, so I will be able to use these boots comfortably. If you want to check these stats for yourself, go to Skycrypt and go typing my username, which is yojoboy-yt. Please go check it out. For this comparison, to make it fair for everything, I will be disabling my pet, so that, there's minimal variables to this test. However, I'll be keeping all of my equipment the same, because these equipments are not really expensive and are quite easily accessible to mid-game players. Now, taking a look at all of my armor, my helmet is a Fierce Necron's helmet, 5-starred, and has really basic enchants. And for the chestplate, it is also the same, Fierce chestplate, 5-starred with extremely basic enchants. And also for the leggings, 5-starred with basic enchants and rejuvenate. And here's where the interesting part comes in, the difference between Necron boots and Maxor boots. So if we take a look at these boots side by side, we can see that the Necron boots gives us 54 strength, plus 6% crit chance, plus 51% crit damage, and plus 234.5 health. Defense is plus 113, intelligence plus 11, health regen plus 10. These are for the enchantments. And if we take a look at Maxor's boots, although Maxor's boots has a slightly lower gear score, it does give substantially more crit damage, as this gives 67.5 crit damage, while the Necron boots only gives us 51%. It will be interesting to see how these crit damage scales during dungeons and outside of dungeons, so stick around. But it is very noticeable that Maxor's boots have a little bit less defense than Necron's boots. Necron's boots have 113, Maxor's boots have only 91.5. However, Maxor's boots is used because of its speed. As you can see, it gains plus 33 speed, which might look little, but during dungeons where speed is the most important factor for fast clearing, it gives plus 93 speed, which is actually insane, right, for just 1 boot. It also gives us the same intelligence and regeneration to the Necron's boots. So really the only variable between these boots are their defense and their crit damage, and their strength, obviously. I forgot to mention my accessory bag, but I have around 217 magical power, and the power stone of my choice is going to be Silky, as it provides the most crit damage for a mid-game player. And the weapon of choice that I'm going to use is this Spicy Bouquet of Lies, 5-starred, 861 gear score, plus 185% crit damage, plus 1% crit chance, and has the most basic enchants that you can get. It's not anything special, and you can get all of these enchants from the enchanting table. So I believe that this is a little bit low for a mid-game player, however, it is going to be really accurate for these tests. Taking a look at my equipment, I have a Rift Necklace, SA Cloak, Adaptive Belt, and Soul Weaver Gloves. I will be keeping these the same as I stated before. Alright guys, now finally for the outside of dungeons test, let's first take a look at our EHP values. Now, I am currently wearing the Necron's boots, so let's check it out. So it gives us 1828 health, as well as 619 defense. Now, the EHP is going to be 13.143 effective health. Now let's compare this to the Maxor boots. The Maxor boots only gives us 12,741 effective health, which is around 1,000, maybe less, lower than the Necron's boots, which is significant outside of dungeons, but it's not that big of a decrease, right? So let's move on to the hub crypts to test out these damages. Alright guys, we are in the hub crypts with the Necron's boots equipped. Let's see how much damage this does to the crypt ghoul. This did not crit. Okay, it does around 50,000 damage. Now to double check once again, we do about 50,000 damage. And now just for good measure once again, we do around 50,000 damage. Now let's switch these out for Maxor's boots and see how much damage we do this way. Now we do 48,000 damage, again 48,000 damage, and 48,000 damage. Now there's around a 2,000 damage gap between these two, and that is mainly because of the higher strength that the Necron's boots offers rather than the higher crit damage. However, these Maxor boots allow for a much faster out of dungeon experience, which could be beneficial for some people. As if we check our speed stats with the Maxor's boots, we get around 205 speed, whereas with the Necron's boots we only get 172, which may seem just a tiny bit of difference. However, in dungeons this will become extremely massive. But anyway, let's hop to the dungeon testing. Alright guys, now that we are in the dungeons, let's check out our stats with the Necron's boots and the Maxor's boots. Now first of all, for the Necron boots, we have around 79,000 EHP. Let's compare this to the Maxor's boots. We have around 76,000 EHP, which is 3,000 difference. That's not much. However, if we take a look at the speed, we have around 250 speed. Compared to Necron's boots, that has only 184 speed, which is a massive difference. And that difference can be, the difference between a fast run and a slow run. So let's just keep these stats in mind, and I will talk about the conclusion afterwards. But let's just move on to the damage test. Alright guys, I have found a room with enough crypts to do my damage test, so let's do these damages without any blessings to make it extremely fair. Anyways, we are equipped with the Maxor's boots, and let's just blow up these crypt real quick. We did around 436,000 damage, and if we do to double check, we do 560, and if we do it once again, 485, and 580. So it's around 600 to 500,000 damage. So let's just swap to the Necron's boots. And let's see how much damage we do this way. We do 390,000 damage. Let's do it again. 582,000 damage. And just to double check once again, 582,000 damage. I will not be commenting on that much because I will be summing it all up in the section after this. But just keep in mind that the damage difference isn't really big, whereas the speed that Maxor's boots give is just absolutely insane. So this is a test with the Maxor's boots on. And this is the test with the Necron's boots on. There is a noticeable difference between the two. Okay, so let's sum up this graph that I have created. So outside of dungeon, Necron's boots did around 50,000 damage, whereas Maxor boots did only 48,000 damage. This is a plus 4% damage increase, and for HP, Maxor boots had around 12,000 HP, whereas Necron boots had 13,000 HP. This is roughly an 8% increase. Now inside dungeons, Necron's boots did around 580,000 damage, whereas Maxor boots only did 560,000 damage. This is only a 3.57% increase. And for HP inside of dungeons, Necron's boots had 79,000 HP, while Maxor boots only had 76,000. This is around a 3.94 or 4% increase. Now from these graphs we can understand that the difference between dungeons is extremely minimal compared to the difference outside of dungeons. So my recommendation for these two boots is that if you are going to enjoy more out of dungeon gameplay, I'd rather you use the Necron's boot. However, inside dungeons, the Maxor's boots are just completely better in terms of speed, and it is extremely useful until you can get the 400 maximum speed without using Maxor boots. And if you're rich, you can just buy two of them, because, you know, two are better than one, right? So guys, the conclusion is to get both, but if you can't afford it, get Maxor for inside of dungeons, and if you can survive without Necron, and get Necron outside of dungeons, because it's just better and has much more survivability. But if you enjoyed this video and found this video extremely helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.